What is going on? My name is Bradley with DoublySports, bringing you a brand new episode of our Sleepers, Studs, and Stacks. Now, this is for NFL Week 15. There are some Saturday games. We're not going to be talking about those. This is just for the Sunday main slate. I'm sorry for taking a few weeks off. I've been busy, okay? Had a huge radiothon 2 weeks ago to help raise over $200,000 for St. Jude's Research Hospital. And then last week was my wife's birthday, so had to take a step away. Family first, guys. Remember, this is all for fun. That's what Draftkings, DFS, fantasy sports is. It's just fun. Don't take it that seriously. All right, let's get into it. Our sleepers. Low price guys under $5,500 that I think is going to have a big weekend. Mostly based off of playing time, target share matchups, and injuries that have occurred to other players. Starting things off, DeAndre Washington at 4,700. Now, Miami's really lacking weapons, or they could be lacking weapons if the injuries continue. Laird, Gaskin, Devontae Parker, Jakeem Grant might be missing time as well, I believe. If he starts, he's going to see a good amount of volume. Now, a Bill Belichick defense is not one to take lightly, so tread with caution. But DeAndre Washington at $4,700 is definitely worth a view. A guy that I like a little bit more and will save you $200 is Leonard Fournette. No Ronald Jones, and Atlanta is without Julio Jones. I think Tampa Bay gets ahead early, and then I expect to see a heavy dose of Leonard Fournette and Keyshawn Vaughn out of the backfield. I think Tampa Bay gets ahead, but, Atlanta could keep it close. Just keep that in mind. But that Tampa Bay defense, I think, is the difference. Force Matt Ryan to take some turnovers. Leonard Fournette on short field. Pound the ball into the end zone. Dwayne Haskins at $5,000 against the Seattle Seahawks. I've never really been a guy that plays a quarterback that's just been thrown in there. I don't think I'm going to be playing Dwayne Haskins this week. But at $5,000, he is certainly worth a look. We know how bad that Seattle Seahawks defense is. There's no reason Dwayne Haskins shouldn't be able to put up points. He has a healthy Terry. He has a healthy Antonio Gibson, Antonio Gandy Golden, Logan Thomas at the tight end position, Cam Sims, Steven Sims. He does have a few weapons that he's worked with before. So he's not technically a backup who's never seen the field. Going up against a bad Seattle defense in a game that Seattle should put up points, I think Dwayne Haskins is going to be forced to throw the ball. If you're just looking to get 3 times his point value, I don't think there's any question he hits 15 points this week. T.Y. Hilton against the Houston Texans, a terrible Houston Texans defense. Hilton has 18 targets over the last 2 games combined. I believe it's 11-7. 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games. When Jonathan Taylor starts to get going and teams are now focusing against the run because that offensive line is so darn good at creating holes, things have opened up for T.Y. Hilton. I think him and Phillip Rivers are finally gotten on the same page. There's a lot of weapons to share. A number of tight ends that you've heard talked about this year with Jack Doyle, Mo Alley Cox, Trey Burton, Michael Pittman Jr. There's a lot of weapons to feed here. That doesn't mean there's a lot to go around because they don't throw it that much. But T.Y. Hilton at $5,500 against Houston Texans and Jonathan Taylor. We'll talk about him in a second. I like both of them this weekend. Kiki Kuti at $5,300 against the Indianapolis Colts. I expect Houston to be playing from behind. I think many people expect Houston to be playing from behind, forcing Deshaun Watson to throw the ball. It's going to be a pretty good Indianapolis Colts defense that he's going up against. But he's going to see the highest volume of targets. If Brandon Cooks is healthy, I think Kiki Kuti is in an even better position because Cooks is just going to kind of be out there running around. I don't know how healthy he is, but Kiki Kuti will not get the starting cornerback, not the number 1 guy against Indianapolis, so I like him at $5,300. Russell Gage at $4,700. Listen, Julio Jones is out, so I like him. I don't love him. At $4,700, I like him. If Julio Jones is in there, it opens things up immensely for Russell Gage to have that big boom or bust week. He's not going to be a guy that gets you 10 catches, 9 catches, 8 catches in a game. He's going to be a guy who gets you 3 catches, 75 yards, and a touchdown. He's helped when Julio Jones is there because it alleviates some of that pressure. But he could see some additional targets, so 5, 6 catches this week is not out of the realm of possibilities. Going back into the Miami Dolphins, double dipping for the Dolphins this weekend. Like I said, they're lacking weapons. Lynn Bowden Jr. at 3,600 against New England. I'm pretty sure he ran more routes than anyone else over the last 2 weeks for the Miami Dolphins. Again, I'm not expecting huge numbers out of Bowden, but I think the usage is there. If Parker or Grant or any other wide receiver misses time, Lynn Bowden Jr. out of the slot, because he won't be lining up on the outside. He's a smaller weapon out of the slot. He could be in for a big game with Tua having a lot of faith in those check down routes. And more to watch, guys that I haven't really gotten into, but definitely worth a look, and I'll explain that very quickly. David Johnson, 5,100 against Indianapolis. I think Indianapolis gets ahead, so I'm kind of leering away from David Johnson. Don't know if the usage will be there. Gus Edwards against Jacksonville. He's dirt cheap, scored 2 touchdowns last week. J.K. Dobbins and some other guys are obviously going to be the main characters, but Gus Edwards does have huge upside touchdown potential. Gardner Minshew against Baltimore, dirt cheap. Willie Snead at Jacksonville. As you can see, there's a lot that I'm talking about in this game. Lamar Jackson doesn't throw the ball a lot, but Willie Snead, I think, worth a look. Corey Davis against Detroit might be my favorite player in the More to Watch campaign down here. I think he's at 5,800, so he didn't quite fit under that $5,500 threshold. Kind of depends on the game script in this one. Detroit defensive backs have been absolutely terrible all year round. A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith, a couple of the other tight ends I think are in for a big game. But if they get ahead early, they're going to be attacking our number one stud of the week, which is Derrick Henry. And then finally, Antonio Brown against Atlanta, who is terrible over the middle. No team, in my opinion, is worse at defending against the running back pass and wide receivers over the middle. Antonio Brown is running that for this Tampa Bay offense. And Michael Gallup at only 3,500. 6 targets last week, only caught 2 passes. Didn't really have good hands. I think that they're going to be going back to him this week. At $3,500, I'll take 3 catches for 25 yards and a touchdown, happily. And our studs. And although these guys are a lot more expensive than those sleepers, you definitely need to target some of these players. We want to get 4 times points value. So, $10,000, I want 40 points. No one costs $10,000 on the slate. But at $7,000, you want to get 28. I know that's difficult, but think about it this way. If you do that, your $50,000 that you spend puts up 200 points. And that is cashing every single week. Even 150 is cashing on most weeks, which is only 3 times your $1,000 spent. Kicking things off, going to be the most popular guy that everyone's talking about this week, Derrick Henry, $9,500 against Detroit. I don't know many lineups that are going to be able to fit him in. I think you do have to pay up this week, especially for the running backs. Maybe not top tier running backs, but above that $5,000, $6,000 threshold. Derrick Henry, I don't think it's going to be surprised. He's our number one stud of the week. Next up, Jonathan Taylor at $7,200 against the Houston Texans. It's a huge price jump. I believe he was $6,000 last week. But I think the Colts have finally starting to use him like they should. Over the last 2 weeks, 13 and 20 carries or something like that. Houston has given up massive chunks to running backs. They might stop you for 3, 4, 5 straight runs, but then they will let you gash them for a 75-yard breakout run. It happens every single week. If it's not Taylor, it's going to be Nyheim Hines this week, and I'm going to be really mad when it is Hines. But for now, I'm sticking with my guns, Jonathan Taylor. Next running back that I really want to focus on this week, Miles Sanders at $6,900 against Arizona. He's a threat in the passing game with at least 5 targets in 3 of his last 5 games. Arizona is a bend, don't break defense. If you look at them on Draftkings, I believe it says Arizona is something like the 11th best or 9th best defense against running backs. It's because they don't give up a lot of touchdowns. But 119 rush yards allowed per game. I think Miles Sanders has a chance to have a massive game this week. Moving on to DeAndre Hopkins at $7,900 against the Philadelphia Eagles. They're only allowing 235 pass yards per game, but we all know DeAndre Hopkins is absolutely matchup proof. Double-digit targets in 3 of 5 games, 3 of the last 5 games. I have no worries if I'm plugging him into my lineup that he's going to at least get me 20 to 25 points. Allen Robinson, $7,400 against Minnesota. 13 targets in 2 of the last 3 games. He does have a price jump, and I don't like that, so that does scare me a little bit. But he should see decent volume against Minnesota. Minnesota, with a healthy Thielen and healthy Jefferson and healthy Cook, should be able to put up points and kind of give the Chicago defense a little bit of a fit. If that is the case, Allen Robinson's usage will balloon. Now, if Minnesota can't generate anything and Kirk Cousins goes into freaking rookie mode and can't do anything, Robinson obviously not going to get usage because they're just going to hand the ball off to David Montgomery and Cordarrelle Patterson. I don't think that's the case. I have a little bit of faith in the Minnesota Vikings this week. $7,400, I'll take Allen Robinson. Chris Godwin at $6,200 against Atlanta. In games that aren't being demolished by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they aren't just absolutely running over their opponent, which has been a couple of times, Godwin gets absolutely fed. Games of 9 or 10 targets against Kansas City and the Los Angeles Rams. Atlanta could keep it close. Not sure that's going to happen, but at $6,200, which is still a little underpriced for me for a guy that's getting double-digit targets in most of his games, I'm willing to take the risk. I mentioned Antonio Brown earlier being horrible, or this Atlanta Falcons defense being horrible over the middle. Chris Godwin is also catching really short passes. It's kind of where Atlanta struggles. I think Tom Brady puts up really good numbers this week. And finally, favorite tight end play should be no surprise. Travis Kelce, $8,000 against New Orleans. 12 targets in 3 of his last 6 games. Double digit in 5 of the last 7. And at $8,000. $8,000 sounds like a lot. But I would much rather have him at this price point than Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf against Washington, Calvin Ridley against Tampa Bay, who's a good defense and should get plenty of pressure on Matt Ryan. And I would also start him over Dalvin Cook. Finally, more to watch, DeAndre Swift. I think Calvin Ridley does have upside. If Matt Ryan is able to have time, he could find Calvin Ridley, but he's immensely hurt by the fact that Julio Jones is not there. And then Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp against the New York Jets. Never a bad play to play against the New York Jets. Kind of just depends on where your mind falls in that one. And our stacks. And our stacks and defense have been absolutely on fire over the past few weeks. I'm really excited about our defenses because I think there's one that is a steal. But with the stacks, Indianapolis Colts against Houston, Phillip Rivers, T.Y. Hilton, and Jonathan Taylor. I don't love T.Y. Hilton, but at $5,500, I think plugging him in at that price point really opens things up for my other wide receivers that I do want to go out and get, or even my tight end in Travis Kelce. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I love all 4 of these guys this week. Tom Brady, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette. I don't love Mike Evans. He seems to struggle. Maybe it's an eye test kind of thing, but he has seemed to struggle against Atlanta over the past few years. Tom Brady, I get it. New offense, new quarterback. I get it. But he's leaning towards Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown in this one, and then Leonard Fournette should have a massive game. Finally, I'm surprised I'm saying this, the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, and Dallas Goedert, or Godart, or Gooey Dart. The Philadelphia Eagles against the Arizona Cardinals defense. We know Arizona's going to put up points. The Eagles should be chasing, which should play into the hands of Jalen Hurts getting passes off to Miles Sanders and Goedert, who caught more passes than anyone else on this Eagles team last week. Our defenses. I'm looking for turnovers and sacks. No one's going to have more turnovers than the Rams against the Jets this weekend. A close second to that, in my opinion, is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Atlanta Falcons offense. And lastly, if you want one that's middle of the road and could surprise a lot of people, Miami Dolphins, for one reason and one reason only, and that is Xavier Howard. Cam Newton, we know, has struggled at times with accuracy and overthrowing guys. Xavier Howard has a knack for picking off inaccurate passes. Miami Dolphins at $3,700 against New England. I like that a lot. Guys, that's going to do it for me for this one, which is week 15 of the NFL season. If you want to find me anywhere else, please hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, meet up with the team on Twitter, DoublySports, Facebook.com/DoublySports. Join us over on Twitch, twitch.tv/DoublySports, or just search DoublySports in the search bar. We're going to be doing some lives on Twitch over the NFL offseason, as well as we get closer to the MLB season. I won't be able to put together these slideshows for the MLB season, it just takes too much time, but we will break down a couple of slates for MLB. That is my bread and butter. Patreon.com/DoublySports for weekly access to our starting five and late bloomers reports before we post it on Facebook. It's going to come out tomorrow morning. That's Sunday morning this week for Patreon. Patreon.com/DoublySports. Sunday morning, you'll get it first, and then everyone else gets it about 30 minutes before kickoff this Sunday. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Give it a big old thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you missed me, give it a big old thumbs up. If you hate me, give it a thumbs up. I really don't care. Just hit some buttons. Make it do things, okay? Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully the next time that I see you is in the green.